Hello everyone and welcome to another Feed Army video. My name is Emmanuel and today we'll be talking about a new attribute requirement that will start as of 30th of September 2026 for Google Shopping and Google Merchant Center. This is regarding the minimum order value attribute. Now let's assume that you have a product landing page and you're charging $29.99. But in the checkout, you're charging a minimum order value of £50. So meaning you have to spend either buy it twice to be over the £50 threshold to be able to make a purchase on that specific website. If that is the case for you, then as of 30th of September, you need to add a minimum order value so that consumers can know how much they have to spend or charge their card to be able to make a purchase on your website. In my opinion, this seems to be a little bit of a disadvantage for the merchants and a positive advantage for the consumer. So if you're requiring a minimum order value and it's not really a marketing value for your business, meaning that you're not actually really benefiting from it, maybe consider removing it or do a test that you can see if you get more sales or more profit if you remove the minimum order value. Now, of course, minimum order values are required for certain scenarios, like if you're selling tiles, then you can't sell one tile or one pack of tile. Maybe you want to sell at least 5 packs. So in these situations, of course, you need to add that. So with the minimum order value, this is actually required for the whole of EU. So that means United Kingdom, Switzerland, and EEA. Now let's have a look at the requirements for adding this value. So this value can be added in the primary feed. It can also be added as a feed rule if it applies to everything, and it can also be added as a supplemental value. So supplemental feed like a Google Sheet, and you add that, and then you can add these values as well. The easiest and the most best option is to always add values in the primary feed if it's kind of applicable to everything, or use feed rules. The reason we want to add it to the primary feed first is that the more details that you add to the primary feed, the less complex it is for you to add things in the future if something changes. So what you need to do is add the attribute name minimum order value. Now you can add it with underscore or with space. They will both work. But if you're using one naming convention, stick with it. So a naming convention is, for example, if you're always adding a space in between the names or the words, then continue to do that. If you always use underscore, then continue to use always the underscore. And that's what refers to the naming convention. So what you need to do is add the country. So for example, if we're targeting the United Kingdom, because I just mentioned the price in GBP, then you add the country GB. Then the service, that is optional, but for example, if you have standard or express shipping options, then you add that value. And for the service, this is also optional, and this refers to the shopping listings or local listings. And then what is required? Of course, the price, and this is the minimum order value. So in this case, you add then 50 GBP. And then it goes into different formats. So for example, if you're using a spreadsheet, how you add the values. So you can add just this. But if you're deviating from the requirements and the from the optional values, then you should add these as well. So what each sub-attribute refers to. So if you're, for example, also adding service, then you need country, service, and then service in between, and then price. But if you're just adding the required attributes, so the country and then the price, then you don't need to add that, but you can, for example, then country and then colon price. So then the value would be, for example, US and then 50 GBP in our example. You can also add it as a XML feed, of course, and also as a Google Merchant Center attribute. So let's have a look into that. So now let's have a look at the attribute itself, because that example is not given. So if we go here and type in minimum order value, there we go. and then we can set up or specify the specific subgroup. So for example, the subgroup, and then you can add a specific value. So let's say the country is then UK, so that's GB. And then the price in our case is 50. Don't forget the currency code, the ISO-free currency code. That needs to be always added, because otherwise Google cannot recognize which currency code you're talking about. Then the service, you can then, for example, say standard. So this needs to be reflective of your shipping attribute. And then for the service, when you click on add value, this should be pre-selected, and that is not the case. I will have to contact Google about this. That should be pre-selected. So for example, it should say online, local, or online and local. So for online and local, then you do online_local. If it's just online, you just do that. If it's just local, then you type it like this. When you want to select this value, don't forget, underneath add value, always click on it, because if you just click enter, then it will not work. And then you just click on OK. And then if you want to show preview, you can see now the values are added. So this is how you do it through the feed rules or attribute rules. If you don't see the attribute rules, then you need to go to add-ons and add advanced data feed management. I'm going to cancel this because obviously this is not relevant to this product. And that is then a requirement starting off 30th of September, but I recommend that you start adding it now, because then you are prepared for the requirement, and you can also test if adding this will be a positive or a negative effect for your products. I would assume it will be a negative for merchants and a positive for consumers. However, if it's an industry standard, then I don't see any negative, of course, because that is a very common practice in that specific case. If you have any questions or you need help with how to implement this, feel free to reach out or leave a comment downstairs. Thank you very much for watching, and see you in the next video.